Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. It looks like we are ready to go here. I know that we're waiting on our attendees to slowly join us into our broadcast today. I would like to welcome our Congressional Award at Home community. Thank you so much for participating today. I am Erica Heiss, who serves as the National Director of the Congressional Award Foundation. I'm joining you from my home in Arlington, Virginia, just across the Potomac from our Capitol Hill office. So I just want to thank everyone for their time today. This is an important discussion, and we hope to provide some really valuable insight and expertise from our panel today. So today's topic is mental and emotional health of our teens and the impact of COVID-19 on this particular age group. So we know that this is important for our constituents, but most importantly, we felt it was really critical for our Congressional Award participants and their families and advisors. So we hope that you all are able to ask some questions and get some answers to some of the things that are concerning you today. So to begin, please take a moment to acquaint yourself with the chat box, which is located down below. We're going to post some pretty valuable information and links to some of the resources today. So please look there for that information. And while you're looking at the chat box, please say hello. Let us know where you're coming from. And we see some great responses already. We'd love to see you. Today's conversation will be recorded and shared with everyone. So if you're missing it, you want to be able to send it to a friend, you'll be able to do that. This is a great response, guys. Thanks so much. We will also be sending a post-webinar survey to our participants. So for anyone who is asking about personal development credit, you'll be able to get some information there. So make sure you're looking for that follow-up email from us. And we also want to hear from you about your experience today. We are streaming on Facebook Live, so welcome to everyone joining from our Facebook community as well. And I do want to just recognize Derek Doyle, who is producing this segment for us today. So you may see his name on the screen from time to time, so be sure to say hello to Derek. We have a lot to cover today, and some wonderful guests that we'll be hearing from. So we will also try to answer some of the questions that you've submitted to us. And with that, we will dive right in to our first guest. So right now we have the pleasure of speaking with the Honorable Richard Hudson from the 8th District of North Carolina, a Congressional Award board member, and also a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, the subcommittee on health, which covers mental health issues. So welcome, Congressman. Thank you for being here.
Great to be with you. Real pleasure. Hello to everybody. It's fun seeing all the chats, seeing where everybody's joining us from around the country.
That's awesome. So for those who are not familiar with your district, could you tell us a little bit about it, what geographical area it covers, and if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about COVID-19 and the effects in your district and how you're responding?
Sure. Well, so my district is in the south central part of North Carolina. Stretches from suburbs of Charlotte, basically. If you ever heard of Charlotte Motor Speedway, we just had a couple races out there this week. That's the far west end of my district. And then it stretches east from there through some rural parts of our state. The center of my district is the golf capital of the world, Pinehurst. It continues through some more rural area and then ends in the east in a more urban area, Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is also home of Fort Bragg, the largest Army base in the world, home of the airborne and special operations. And a lot of Congressional Award students come from that area, as well as from the Charlotte area. So it's a great community. It's a diverse district in terms of suburbs, urban, and rural. It's a nice part of the country. And as far as the COVID-19, we've had tremendous impact. The economic numbers have been staggering, just like everywhere else. I think in North Carolina, we lost 572,000 jobs just in April alone. Businesses have been completely shut down, and folks are really hurting out there. But beyond just the statistics of things, and I should say we started reopening as of Friday The governor moved us to our next phase. And so restaurants can operate at 50%, and certain businesses are allowed to reopen. I personally think we ought to be moving a little faster on the reopen. I think we can safely reopen. I think, we still have to have social distancing and use masks. But I think the quicker we can get back to whatever that new normal is going to be like, we ought to be moving quickly because, as I say, people are really hurting out there, business owners, employees who they don't have jobs to go to right now. It's really scary times. But beyond the statistics of that, I think the impact also that needs to be talked about is the impact on people, just the pressures of losing a job, of being home, with your family on top of each other nonstop. That's a blessing, but it also, I'm finding myself in my own life, I need to go to find a quiet space to sit for a few minutes. I've got a 4-year-old at home who's wonderful, but full of energy. So these are challenging times for people, dealing with the economic consequences of, how am I going to pay my rent or my mortgage? And, is my job going to be there for me as we get out of this? It's a lot of stress on people. And I'm sure you're all feeling it. And then for young people on this call, many people are graduating now. My nephew is actually graduating from high school tomorrow. And I'm driving up to West Virginia to be there. But we're all going to be in our cars watching the graduation. So they're adapting. But there are a lot of people who didn't even have a chance to have graduations. This is a time of your life where either you're graduating high school and getting ready to go get some independence and go to college or to a career, or folks who are graduating college and you were thinking this is going to be the time where you're going to move on to the rest of your life and really get your life started. And now that's on hold and maybe you're back home with your parents. And, there's a lot of stress there and I know a lot of anxiety. And so if you're feeling that, imagine what someone who has a substance abuse problem is feeling, or someone who has a mental health underlying condition. This just compounds the problem they're dealing with. And so access to mental health services is a real big issue right now. I think one benefit we're seeing is a lot more people are getting comfortable using telehealth, which is something that I've been pushing for years. The main two obstacles of telemedicine are who's going to pay for it. Medicare won't pay for it until now. But secondly, people have to be comfortable using it, and most people weren't. But I think now even our seniors are Zoom visiting with their grandkids every week now and getting used to the technology. And a lot of folks are using telemedicine and realizing that it can be a good thing. And so oftentimes you get innovation in times of crisis, and we're seeing a lot of innovation, especially in the healthcare space now, that I think will be good for us coming out of this. But as a policymaker, my focus is, what are the emergency steps we've taken that we ought to make permanent going forward, and what are the lessons we can learn from that? So anyway, that's just kind of a snapshot of what we're dealing with.
Thank you. And thank you for mentioning the military community, because that's a strong partner of ours at the Congressional Award, and we serve a lot of our military families, and that's an important note to make. Thank you again also for your support in presenting all of these Congressional Award medals. You've been on our board since 2013. You've met with a lot of students at this point. Can you share with us any impacts you think the Congressional Award Program has on your youth, on the constituents that you've met with?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I am a huge proponent of this program because I've seen the impact it's had on young people. And one thing we always say is you can't be given this award; you have to earn this award, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of self-improvement. And so some of the most impressive people I've met since I've been in Congress have been young people participating in this program, and so it's a real honor every chance I get to present a medal to someone who's earned it. It's really it's exciting for me, but it's also inspiring for me to meet these young people and see how much work you put into this and things you've learned about yourself, the places you visited. There's so many. I made a note here of how many we've had, but see, over the last 3 years, we've had 2,500 hours of community service just from my region, from young people participating. And we are one of the fastest growing regions, and I'm proud of that. But since 2018, we've had over 500 new young people take on the challenge, and nearly 150 students earn their award, which is incredible when you think about it. But and we've had people volunteering through Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, other things like that, who are participating. as I was thinking about this call, I thought about a gold medalist named Tyler Egan from 2017, who identified the immigrant community in our district as needing assistance. And he took the time to volunteer at a food pantry in an area that would help out this community, and did a lot of incredible work there. He said later that he was able to improve his Spanish skills and really connect with the people he was helping. And so you think about the impact that he had in his community by doing that, but also the impact on him as an individual and what he took away from that. So, there's just, hundreds of stories like that. The more time I spend with this program, the more I love it and the more I appreciate.
Thank you, Congressman. Now, we know that this is a time of isolation, and for some of our students, they're withdrawing a bit. Can you share with us any tips, any ways that you're staying connected with family, colleagues, and your constituents at this time?
Yeah, so doing this right here, I think we're all becoming much better at this. I'd used FaceTime in the past. I travel a lot, and I've got a young son at home, so I FaceTime with my wife and son. But I'd never use Zoom or these other platforms that we're using now. But I've this is my second or third one today, probably my 8th one this week. Initially, when Congress first adjourned and we all went to our sort of shutdown period in the country, I stayed in Washington and was coming to the office. And each day we lined up different groups in my district that I wanted to have a scheduled Zoom call with. So we talked to healthcare providers. One day we talked to public health officials. We talked to school superintendents. We're able to identify a lot of issues they were having. So if you think back to this time, all students were sent home and the schools were told, you need to keep feeding the children and you need to figure out how to do distance learning. And for most of these school systems, they'd never done anything like this before. And so we were looking at what are the federal restrictions that prevent you from doing what you're going to need to do to get food disseminated out to students using your school buses, and how are you going to pay overtime and other things, and how can you free up money that the federal strings say you have to spend it this way, but you can't spend it that way now because that's not the experience we're in. And so I was able very early on to identify some issues that we were able to work with, in that case, the Department of Education. But it was very helpful for me to use Zoom meetings to really talk to folks on the ground about what they were seeing. And I couldn't go visit them at the time because we were all asked to stay home. And then we just continued to add meetings and different ways of staying in touch. We've done telephone town halls, Zoom town halls. We had one last night, and just trying to continue to stay in touch with people. Mm-hmm. And then on the personal side, my family, we've got several family Zooms that we're doing once a week on different sides of my family. My wife's family are spread out in Colorado and Texas and California, and then my family in North Carolina and a few other places. So we're regularly checking in with each other on Sundays, and that's been great. And in some cases, I hadn't seen some of those cousins in a while. And in some ways, I'm more connected now with my family than I was before, just because I was so busy with my job. So I think as tough as this is, it really is tough on everybody. There are some blessings out of this, and I think some of us are reconnecting with people and with our family, and maybe the quiet time for ourselves that we maybe we're so busy that we weren't allowing ourselves to have before.
Yeah, there are definitely some silver linings, and that's really what we want to share with our students. We have over 700 participants right now with us from all over the country. So just one last word, a positive statement that you want to make or outreach to our students. What would you leave them with today?
I know times are tough, and especially if you're one of the folks I was talking about who, this is a big year for you. This is your graduation year, or you had big plans this summer that were ruined. These are tough times, and people are worried about the finances. People are worried about the health of their family members. I know this is a tough time for everybody, but have heart, because we are going to get through this. And, if you think about all the things America has been through in our history, we've had some great tragedies in the past. We've had some really tough times in the past, and we've always gotten through it as a country. And the reason we've gotten through it as a country is because our people are so great. And there's an old quote that says, "America's great because America's good." And I've seen so many examples of that throughout this current situation, where neighbors are helping neighbors, where people are bringing groceries to seniors who aren't able to get out. see small businesses who are feeding the community, restaurants and hotels who are just opening up their kitchens and feeding people. And just so many businesses that are now making masks and sanitizer and other things that they, instead of what they used to make, just to help contribute. And I would just say, find a way that you can contribute and find a way that you make sure you're supporting your family, make sure you're supporting your community. There are a lot of people out there feeling very isolated right now. And so what are some ways you can reach out to them? What are ways you can get involved in your community? Because I found in my own life, when you're sort of focusing on yourself and your problems, you can get kind of dark. But when you start looking around at other people and how can you help them and focus on other people, to me, that's always been uplifting and a rewarding experience. And I've found that I get more reward out of it than the people I'm helping. So that would just be my word of encouragement to everybody. Keep doing what you already do. By being a participant in this organization, by taking time to be on the Zoom today, you are an exceptional individual. You're someone who cares about your community. I would just say double down on that and focus on this time on how can you, it's really the questions that the Congressional Award asks in the first place. How can you make yourself better? How can you make your community better? Stay focused on that and know that at some point we are going to come out of this, and at some point, this will be behind us.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you so much for joining us. Those are really inspirational words, and we hope to continue with our service, and it's much appreciated. Great.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. God bless you.
Thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce Kabir Nath, the CEO of Otska North America, one of our primary partners and the company that has made a lot of our work possible. Thank you, Kabir, so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Erica.
Great. So can you explain to our viewers a little bit about what Otska does for those who may not be familiar?
No, sure, I'd be happy to do that. And first, let me say it's a privilege to be partnered with the Congressional Award Foundation in this program, and we're proud of our participation in that. So I wouldn't be surprised, many of you don't know much about Otsuka. We are a nearly 100-year-old Japanese company headquartered in Tokyo, Japan, and we are a global health solutions company active all over the world with around 47,000 employees. Here in the US, we've been established for nearly 40 years. Principal bases of business are Rockville, Maryland, and Princeton, New Jersey, and very, very focused, both our legacy and our commitment around mental health. And for a couple of really important reasons. First, I think we all understand if we have a physical health issue, what we need to do. We need to go to a primary care physician, or if it's with our teeth, we need to go to a dentist. But if it's anxiety, depression, it's much less clear what the path to getting help may be, whether that's to a therapist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist. And we know there are a whole host of factors, including access, stigma, that play into that. That's the situation at the best of times here in the US. Clearly, as the congressman was describing, the current times have exacerbated all sorts of issues in the area of mental illness. So we fully understand, the stresses just from the illness itself, the stresses around employment, livelihood for yourself, for family members, and so on. Some of the strain we were talking about the complete interruption to routine in terms of graduation, in terms of school and everything else. And that's why, this is so timely, and that's why we as a company have been so focused and will continue to be so focused on this area of mental health.
That's very important. Thank you for all the work that you do. I know the Congressional Award Program is in fact all about giving back and goal setting, and we are, of course, working with our students to be able to serve from home. I know that your company has done quite a bit in the mental health space, and you guys are really participating not just in the Princeton community where you're located, but globally. Can you share some of that information and what you all are doing?
Happy to do that. So there are a number of areas. So in the area of COVID-19 response specifically, across the world, our affiliates have been very engaged in supporting local communities first. So again, some of the things that the congressman was talking about, recognizing that communities close to our offices, close to our factories, close to our businesses have been in significant need. So whether through donations of equipment, donations of food, donations of money, we've made significant donations across the world in terms of immediate response. We've also recently made a number of significant donations to advocacy partners that we work with regularly, recognizing that they are right now needing to provide even more services and support to the communities they work with. So we have made some additional discretionary funds available there. We have actually a dedicated platform called PsychU, which is completely non-branded, which is information available to anyone in the community, physicians, patients, others, resources around how to deal with mental health issues in a general sense, but also, again, now is exacerbated by the crisis. And we've seen we're running more frequent webinars than ever there, and we've actually seen the take-up of that expand dramatically in the last couple of months. And then finally, I think the thing I want to mention is just last week, we announced that we're actually the lead and founding sponsor of the Wellbeing's Youth Mental Health Project. This is a multi-year public health campaign that's being launched by WETA, the flagship public broadcasting system here in the nation's capital, or rather in DC, close to where Erica is. This sponsorship not only includes a whole program around really putting programs out into different cities and communities around supporting a dialogue around mental health, but one of its flagship elements also will be the future PBS documentary series, a working title, Hiding in Plain Sight, Our Mental Health Crisis, and that's going to be executive produced by Ken Burns. And the reason we chose to do that was exactly because we saw that that area of youth mental health was so fundamentally important. I think one thing to also add, and many of you will be aware of this, but it is the sad reality that of serious mental illnesses, 65 to 70% first manifest in teenage or young years, in young adults. So the ability to actually identify, diagnose, find support at that age is incredibly important. So those are just some of the examples, Erica, of the work we've been doing, not only in the US, but globally.
Giving back is so important. Thank you for your leadership. That's amazing work. And we'll be linking the information to the Wellbeing's program with PBS in our chat box. So we'll also share that with all of our students following this webinar.
Great,
one last question for us. Our students, like we said, we have about 700 students from all over, and to have the opportunity to be able to speak with you is a privilege. So we talk a lot about goal setting and how goal setting really keeps us focused and moving forward. And in times like that, like this, that's very important. So can you share with us anything about your journey in the corporate world or through education, and where some of these students are right now? They'd be very curious to know. I'm getting a lot of questions on this, of how you ended up in the position that you're in.
Well, thank you. And of course, one thing about it being a CEO is you like talking about yourself. So that's a very easy question for me to answer. But no, thank you for that. And I think a couple of things that I know will resonate. So, you know this, but hard work is at the heart of it. So, I'm lucky enough, as you may have detected from my accent, I didn't grow up in New Jersey, even though I'm here in New Jersey right now. I grew up in the UK and benefited from an excellent education there, but also stretched myself to actually benefit from that education, and thereafter went and put myself through business school. So the hard work there but a well-rounded education. It's not merely about academic achievement. It's also about finding your inner self, finding that range of interests and so on that make you a whole person. I'm a very strong believer that well-rounded individuals make much better leaders than people who are absolutely focused just on business success. So that's one element. I think the second element is I've been fortunate to have the opportunities, but you also have to seize those opportunities to do jobs, to undertake tasks that you're not sure you can do. That element of stretch, that element of being given an opportunity or a responsibility that frankly makes you uncomfortable, to me is an amazing learning experience. And it takes a mental shift. You need to be grounded. You need to have that sense of self-worth to do it. But if you can do that, that's incredibly powerful. And for me, there've been a number of examples of that, but probably the best was nearly 20 years ago, working for a big US pharmaceutical company, Bristol Myers Squibb. I was asked at short notice to manage the China operation. And that was a very challenging opportunity. the hardest job I've ever done professionally or personally, but the one that I learned most in. And again, my lesson from that for everyone is seize those opportunities to stretch yourself, to go over and beyond, and you'll be amazed by your own capability and what you can achieve. And I wish you all great luck with that as you develop your own lives or your own paths in life and your own careers.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you so much for speaking to our students today. And if you don't mind, I'm going to ask just one more thing of you. We mentioned Princeton, New Jersey, where you all are based, and we are very fortunate to have a special guest from your neck of the woods, the Honorable Bonnie Watson Coleman, who I know you've worked with quite a bit. So I may ask you to introduce the Congresswoman who just joined us.
And I will be absolutely delighted to do that. It's a great privilege to introduce Congressman Bonnie Watson Coleman. She's been serving in New Jersey's 12th congressional district since 2015, and before that, nearly 20 years at New Jersey General Assembly. She is indeed Otsuka in Princeton. She represents us, and we're delighted to be her constituent. We're delighted to have worked with her. She, as you'll hear, has a really strong focus on mental health, particularly in the younger population, has been an incredible advocate as well as a friend to us, and it's a pleasure to see her. 2 weeks ago, she and I had the opportunity of interacting in another live interview session, talking about her passion in this space and her interests. And Congresswoman, it's a real pleasure to see you again. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you, Kabir. It's good to see you always.
Thank you.
And I appreciated your comments. I had an opportunity to hear your presentation, so thank you very much for that and all that you and the company do in working in this space. You do it out of a sense of obligation and commitment that is very important, and I appreciate that.
Thank
Hi,
you.
everybody.
Hi, Kabir. Thank you so much for all of your support today. We appreciated seeing you. And welcome, Congresswoman. We're delighted. For those of us on the call, we have about 700 students from across the country participating today. Can you share with us a little bit about your district and the area that it covers, and also about your community and how they're responding to our COVID-19 crisis right now?
Thank you. I will. First of all, thank you for doing this. I think it's really important that we take opportunities to communicate with one another, and especially to our young people who are experiencing this disruption in their lives unlike ever before. I come from New Jersey. I live in Mercer County, which is the capital county. So I represent the majority of this county, including the capital, the city of Trenton. I move and I represent Princeton, as Kabir said, and then I move up to Middlesex County, Somerset County, and Union County, and I represent towns in each one of those counties. So I kind of had this sort of central to north a district. It's a very diverse district. It's from a working class to a very affluent district and everything in between. It has some of the poorest communities as well as some of the wealthiest. It is ethnically and racially diverse, and it is a host to many colleges, including Princeton University and the College of New Jersey and county colleges. So, and it also is in the state of the Congressman Howard, who signed the awards program into legislation, so into law. So we've got a long history with you all, and it's a very historic region that I represent, particularly as it relates to being a turning point in the American Revolution.
Exactly. I thank you for that introduction of your district, and you actually have one of the most active congressional award districts with a number of students coming from your area. So thank you for promoting this program and for honoring so many of our deserving youth. I know that means a lot to them. When it comes to this particular issue, we're talking about mental and emotional health for our teens. I know that you have been a leader in this space, and in fact, I was hoping you can share with us a little bit about the Congressional Black Caucus Emergency Task Force on Youth Mental Health that you are a part of and helped to create. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. A couple of things. First of all, let me just say that I'm really proud of the students from New Jersey. even the ones that are not just in the 12th congressional district, but represent New Jersey all over, who participate in the program. We've got some really smart students, and they're incredible, and they've gone through this experience, and they're going to be even more incredible when they come out of it. So I first encountered what I consider to be a problem with young Black youth trying to either committing suicide, threatening it, or succeeding in it. And I did it on Facebook. I'd open up my Facebook page in the morning and I'd see these illustrations of someone who succeeded, someone at the age of 5, 9, 17. And it was something that I was experiencing almost every day. So I said to my staff, we can't fix it, but we need to at least elevate it, discuss it, see what's happening in this space, see what's needed, just raise it, and let's see what comes for that. So in conjunction with the Congressional Black Caucus, we did an emergency task force, and we specifically called it an emergency task force on Black mental health and youth suicide, because we didn't want it to be something that just kept going on and on and on and on. We wanted it to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a product. So we had a work group that was working with us in advisory capacity, in addition to a number of my colleagues who were members of the task force. But the work group consisted of psychologists, psychiatrists, sociologists, academics, therapists, social workers, et cetera, people who work in the field and did research in the field. And what we found was that for reasons known and unknown, Black students in particular were threatening suicides and succeeding in suicides at a higher rate than their age cohorts who were not African American. And we found out that there's a lot of reasons for that, not the least of which is some things that we experience in the communities at large, which is there aren't enough people working in school districts, working in the schools, that see the signs of young students who may be going through some trauma and need to be directed somewhere, guided somewhere, something of that nature. There aren't enough psychologists, psychiatrists, and therapists that are available even outside of the school district, school systems. African American community has kind of looked at this issue of mental health as if you have a mental health issue, you're stigmatized. Kabir said something that I was going to talk to you about. If I had a broken foot, I'd go to an orthopedist. You know, if I had a broken tooth, I'd go to a dentist. So if I've got something else happening and I feel it, but I can't necessarily put my hand on it, maybe I'm in need of a therapist. I'm in need of someone to talk to. But in the African American community, to a great degree, we've been socialized into believing, well, you have Jesus, you can get through anything. And of course, those of us who believe in Jesus have Jesus. Those of us who believe otherwise have whatever it is that we believe in, but there's more to it than that. Because when we're experiencing something that is touching us, disrupting us, causing us to feel uncomfortable about ourselves and questioning whether or not life itself is even important, we need some place to go. And we need to feel comfortable in going there. So the task force, we did a number of hearings. We met with people from young people to older people to providers to parents who've lost children to students who have contemplated suicide. We even had a presentation from students who had experienced the Parkland shooting and were now in college, and we're taking that trauma to college with them. While they were in their homes and in Parkland, they had that resource that was set up to deal with them. But once they moved on to college, it wasn't necessarily available to them. So what we did was we conducted those hearings. We even had, famous people like Taraji P. Henson participate with her foundation, and Susan Taylor, the former publisher of Essence magazine, who does work with young people, participating. And Michael Lindsay, who is a PhD executive director of the McSilver Institute up in NYU, was the head of our work group. As a result of the information that was shared during the hearings and the research that was done, we put together a report of our findings and our recommendations. And the report is called Sounding the Alarm, and it's available on my website. So if anyone is interested, please go and look at it. It's not that long, it's very concise, but it's very revealing. It revealed that A, we don't have enough resources that look into the problem of mental health issues and the implications of suicide in the Black community, particularly the adolescent community, even up to the ages of 17 and 18. We found that there was not enough research that was being done in our communities to sort of assess why we are processing things the way we are. There's not enough scholars that were being supported by our federal programs to do the kind of investigation and to work interoperably with other healthcare professionals to bring some reason and rationale to what they're seeing. And there wasn't sufficient either counselors or other interveners at this located at the schools that could be helpful. And then finally, we recognized that people weren't trained to see the signs. And the signs that they were seeing were interpreted sometimes differently if they were coming from a Black student versus a white student. And so we recognized that there were some cultural issues that were missing as well. So the report that we have led us to a piece of legislation that we have introduced that has quite a bit of money in it to remedy some of that, to create opportunities for training on seeing the signs, to support more people studying in those fields that we're interested in and having the cultural competence to understand the uniqueness of minority communities, including Black communities. There's additional money put into the kinds of scholarships and research programs that would be identified for research in this area and by researchers who are interested in the area and come from the communities. And then there's resources that's available for schools, particularly schools with high poverty levels, that are willing to engage in this space. And so that piece of legislation is working its way through the congressional system, and we all know what that means. But we're going to stick with it, and we're going to continue to pursue it. But in addition to that piece of legislation, even in the legislation that has been passed by the House addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, has additional mental health services in it, not just targeting African Americans or any group, but looking at where the disparities lie and then putting resources into them. So we recognize that we haven't done enough to make it okay for people to reach out and to say, something is wrong, I don't feel good about myself, I'm frightened, I'm having very bad thoughts, whatever that situation might be, and to give them the courage and the encouragement to reach out, and at the same time, have the resources available for them that would respond to their need.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing within the mental health space. I really hope that our students are able to take away that, these emotions that they may be experiencing, or that they may have a friend experiencing, that there are resources available, and there are people like yourself on the Hill that are working to provide additional resources. So I want to thank you for your work and for your support of our program. And this actually segues very nicely into our next panelist from Mental Health America, who's going to share some of those resources for our students to ensure that everybody finds their way to what's available. So Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And just to say to the students, it's okay right now if you don't feel good about every day, because we're all kind of experiencing a lot right now. And so I wake up sometimes or try to go to sleep sometimes and I have anxiety, and I know it's associated with the times that we are going through, but we can get through this, and that it is okay to reach out to somebody. And you do reach out to somebody because that's how important your well-being is to all of us. So thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We appreciate you. And next we have Ms. Kelly Davis, who serves as the Director of Peer Advocacy Supports and Services for Mental Health America. Welcome, Kelly. Thank you so much for your participation today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you all.
Great. Well, as you can see, this is a meaningful conversation, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what Mental Health America does and what your role is within the organization.
Yeah, so MHA was founded in 1909, and we work on mental health. So we work on promoting resources and access for the 1 in 5 Americans who have a mental health condition, and promoting mental health for the 5 in 5 Americans who have mental health. So we take a really holistic approach to our work. I work in our national office, but we have over 200 affiliate offices around the country. In our office, we do public education, we do federal and state policy, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other programs that we do. So we aren't therapists in the national office, although some of our affiliates do kind of direct services, but we really focus on policy, public education, and some broader programs to help people get access to resources and navigate what's already available. A little bit about my work specifically at MHA. So I identify as somebody with lived experience. So growing up, I struggled a lot with depression and PTSD. And in my work at MHA, I work specifically on peer support. So all of my work is about people who have personal experience with mental health challenges, really building a better world for other people who are struggling. That's with adults, but then I also have a heavy emphasis on working with college students. And I think it's really important for young people in particular, and for everybody and anybody who has experience with mental health challenges, to really be at the table and involved with building resources, because we understand in a very different way our experiences and what will be helpful.
Absolutely. So tell us about the trends. What are we seeing right now? What's going on with this age group?
So, you know, it makes sense given the circumstances. Many young people's lives have been completely changed. You don't see your friends regularly, and you're not seeing your friends in person. You're not in school. You maybe lost your sports and the activities that you were doing. And, you know, we're seeing a large increase in students who are, you know, saying that it's hard to even pay attention or stay involved with schoolwork. They feel like lonely, hopeless, and isolated because they're not accessing their peers. We have an online screening program, and we've seen a significant increase in people coming to us looking for help with anxiety. And for young people in particular, a high increase in folks who are under 25 coming and screening moderate to severe for depression. So just to say that there's a lot happening. And if you're struggling, if the people around you are struggling, know that you're not alone. As you know, the Congresswoman just said, it's a really hard time. And whether, you know, you were struggling before or you're dealing with something new now, like, it's okay to not be okay. And there's a lot of resources that are available to help you. And there's a lot of people who are going through the same thing. I know I talk a lot about my experiences with mental health challenges. And once I started talking about them, I realized that so many people around me were also struggling with the same things. We were just afraid to talk about it. So just know that it's a really hard time, and it makes sense if you're having a hard time, and you're not the only one.
Absolutely. And thank you to all the students who are brave enough to talk about it. But also, our students really have noticed that sometimes a friend is really going through a hard time and they are not quite engaged in the same things that they used to be. They're not, perhaps they're not on social media, perhaps they're not involved in group chats or some communication that even their own parents wouldn't know about. So students are kind of on that front line. And we've had some questions about what they should do if they've noticed a friend that is just not themselves. Can you give any advice to them of what they should do in that case?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of why peer support is so powerful is because as friends, a lot of times we can see changes in our friends before other folks notice them. And even before people might notice, their behaviors change themselves. I would always recommend having a conversation if you notice a change. We talk about using I statements. So instead of saying you're different or you're being weird, you can say, I noticed that you haven't been logging onto Xbox, or I noticed that, you seem kind of sad, or you seem more down when we interact. I'm here if you want to talk. And I think from the listener side, really creating space and understanding that you don't have to fix what's happening. And that a lot of times when people are struggling, trying to fix what they're sharing can help them, can make them shut down. And that, you can just say, I'm here to talk. Like I'm not a professional. I can't tell you what to do, but I'm here to listen. And if there are things that if you want to look for, if you want to talk about like what it would be like to tell your mom, maybe you want to see a therapist, I can do that with you too. But, I think just holding space for people, non-judgmentally letting them talk and checking in and saying, I care about you. And, maybe making plans to not just talk about their mental health, but like going out of your way to text them and say, hey, thinking of you today, or hey, can we put a time on our schedule to talk, or something like that too, I think can help. A lot of people are really struggling with the lack of schedule. And I think having something to look forward to when you're struggling is really hard. What I would also say is if you're really concerned about your friend and what you're noticing, I would definitely talk to a safe adult. So whether that's like emailing a teacher, talking to your parents, talking to a coach, it's really important that when the people around us are struggling, that we do what we can to support them, but that you don't have to solve everything, and it's important not to blame yourself or take the responsibility all on yourself.
You, I know, have some resources available on your website, which we are posting here, but you have a screen that you would suggest directing people to. Can you just talk about that so people know where to go? And keep in mind, we have not just students, but we have some educators, we have some parents and people who, may want that for themselves or for other students.
Yeah, absolutely. So on our website, we have a lot of resources. One of the biggest programs that we offer is our online screening program. So that's mhascreening.org. We have a number of different mental health screens, so like depression, anxiety, PTSD. We also have a screen specifically for youth and specifically for parents. So if you're a parent and you're worried about your child, you can take that screen and answer the questions. Or if you're, under 18, you can take the youth screen. We also have, if you're worried about, struggling with depression or anxiety, we have a lot of different options, and we explain, what you might, depending on what's happening with you, like what screen you might want to look into. So in addition to the screening piece, we have a screening to support platform. And on that platform, we have information about mental health conditions and different treatment options. We have referrals to different treatment options if you're looking. So if you're looking for a therapist, how you can look online and find something like that. We also have do-it-yourself self-help tools for things that you want to integrate and try on your own. And then we have connection to peer programs, so different ways you can find other people like you to connect with. I'd also add two of our major campaigns that we offer. One is we created as an organization Mental Health Month. This year's Mental Health Month theme is Tools to Thrive. So we have really great resources on owning your feelings, connecting with other people, supporting other people. So we have, even more than I said, really a beautiful guide on how to do that. And we also have back to school materials that are more targeted towards adults or people who work with young people. Last year, there was a lot of focus on loneliness, which I think is really stress and loneliness, which I think is especially relevant right now. So we have a lot of different resources, both for if you're looking for treatment, if you're looking for support, but also if you're just interested in exploring like your own mental health and what you can do to support yourself or the people around you.
Kelly, that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us and for your work at Mental Health America. It's really critical, and we're going to be sharing a lot of this information to our students post this webinar. And also, I know a lot of people are asking specifically about anxiety, so we'll be sure to link to those tips and self-care and things that people can do if they are feeling anxious, whether situationally or overall. So we want to make sure we share that. But Kelly, we greatly appreciate you being here, and we hope to see you again.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
It is now time to bring our final guest panelist, Matteo Magdaleno. Matteo, it is so good to see you. Welcome. Matteo, you're on mute.
Oh, okay, there we go. Thank you.
I want to introduce you. There's so many ways to introduce you. You're a member of our board. You're a member of our task force on virtual programming and online curriculum. You're an educator. You're a motivational speaker. You're a gold medalist. So you've been through the Congressional Award program, and you advise so many students in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. There's nothing, I can't think of anything you're not doing. So welcome, Matteo. Thank you for being here. And although I've listed quite a few titles for you, maybe you can also tell us about your day job. Tell us what you're doing.
Absolutely, Erica. Well, first, I just want to say to all the participants, I'm really excited to be with you all. Y'all kept me entertained with all of your chats and everything that y'all been saying. And you all just inspire me. So thank you. And so my day job is I get to work at a school called Cityscape Schools, and I get to be around 1,400 students on a daily basis. And I can just tell you how inspired I am by our young people and their resilience. So that's what I do during my day job. So.
Well, you mentioned the word inspire, and so I am leaving it to you to inspire this group of students from all over the country, because I have continued to be inspired by you since I've known you. You have such a wonderful story and connection to our young people. I know that you've seen so many things. You've helped so many young people over these last few years, or multiple years, and I know that you truly believe in the power of voluntary public service, of giving back. And I would love for you to speak to our students about that, because I do believe that's very important.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I want to do, if it's okay with you and all of our participants, I just want to be real with you all. And I want to, sometimes we get so tied up with our title that we forget to be very real with people. And if it's okay with you participants, can we just do that? Can we just have a real moment and real life situations? Because, you know, Erica and participants, people look at me now and they're like, oh, Mr. Magdaleno, how can we be like you? You're a Congressional Award gold medalist. Actually, that's the first thing people say. And how did you get to win all these awards and be where you are? And because everybody always loves to see the final product, but they hate the process. And right now, I think what we're all going through the world and in the U.S. is that we're having to be confronted with some of the world, a situation that we have to change. And when I was younger, I'm going to talk just a little bit about the process before I knew there was even a word called quarantine. I was quarantining all my life, and I saw some of you all commenting that y'all wish y'all could be back and work with your teams and be back in sports and what have you. So I'm going to share just a little tidbit of information. And one of the things that I learned early on in life, and I want to just share this quote with you, is sometimes a lot of people, when we're talking about mental health, there's a lot of people that make long-term decisions based on temporary situations. So we've got to guard ourselves, young people, not to make long-term decisions based on temporary situations. Because when I was younger, just to tell you a little bit about my life story, my father passed away in prison when I was 3 years old, leaving my mother to raise 10 children by herself. And so I was the youngest of 10 children. And by the time that I was 13 years old, I witnessed all of my brothers go to prison, leaving me to take care of my sister who was gifted with Down syndrome. And so when y'all were talking about not being able to do what you've used to, imagine being a 13-year-old kid. Actually, at that time, I was 8 years old, having to take care of my sisters. So I bathed her, I cooked for her, I gave her medication. I had to rush from school. So whenever I would see kids playing outside, I was like, why can't I be that little kid? Why can't I be like every other kid? I have to take care of this child, this person that I did not even give birth to. But one of the things that I learned is 3 S's to the success. And I know we have a few minutes left, and I'm going to just share with the 3 S's of what I've learned about being in quarantine my entire life. So most of my entire childhood is when I was 13 years old. I learned one of the first things to do, and I learned from one of my mentors who's joining us all the way from Mexico. She's on this call. She taught me about the 3 S's. So one, in order to keep yourself sane during this time of quarantine and our mental health, is we have to have something to do. And when I was 13 years old, I finally said, you know what, I'm tired of waiting for other people to save me. I'm tired of waiting for Superman, because even Superman was tired of, he was like, he was too scared to show up in my neighborhood. So I said, if it's going to be a change, it is going to be up to me. So I decided at 13 years old to do something to do. So I had to do something. And so I started a choir. And so everybody was like, are you crazy? What are you doing? Probably like many of our participants, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind? Why are you trying to help all these people? And there's going to be a lot of people that think you're crazy and you lost your mind. Just keep on doing it, despite what people say to you, despite them saying, no, go ahead and let them talk about you all they want. You do whatever you have in your heart to do. So 1, something to do. Number 2 is someone to love. And for me is I found people to love, including all of the participants on this call. And I know I haven't met many of you, but you know, when you've been the depository where people deposit nothing but hate to you, you've learned to be an ambassador of love. And students, as a matter of fact, we love y'all so much. I asked the Congressional Award staff to do something with me, because I want this to be all about you, the participants, the young people doing incredible work, not only in the US, but around the world. And so I asked our Congressional Award staff to do something for you all as we're looking at something to love. And since we love you, we're going to share this little video with you.
I think we had a sound issue, so we're
going to add some sound to that.
We're going to start again. We'll do it with sound.
And if not, I got backup, y'all. Got the YouTube going on. So Derek, let me know if you need me to insert myself, because
We got it.
All right, sorry about that. You continue. I got to pull up the video again.
No worries, everyone. So, so the last thing I want us to do. So we said the 3 S's. So something to do, someone or something to love, and the third thing is something to look forward to. And that is what kept me going during the times that I felt like giving up. Is having something to look forward to, which is the reason that this Congressional Award means so much to me, because it kept me alive. And many people volunteer because, you know, all right, we're going to use it as a checkbox. I got to do this. But what I've learned from giving of myself is that I found myself in my giving. You know, the greatest therapy for me was giving of myself. I built, when I was 19 years old, I built a shelter for battered women. And I thought I was helping people. But what I ended up finding out is that I was helping myself, that I found healing in my giving, and that the greatest type of therapy that you can receive is giving of yourself to other people, because it is no longer just about you, but it's about other people. And then when we see and we become empathetic, we see the struggles of other people. And I was reading over your comments, participants, and some of y'all were sharing that you all are feeling very lonely because the only friends that you have are online. And I completely understand how you're going through what you're going through, because I was one of those awkward little kids, and I spent my entire life trying to fit in. All I wanted to do is to be accepted by people. And I come to find out that Dr. Seuss had a great advice for us. Dr. Seuss said, "Why fit in when you were born to stand out?" All of your entire life, you've been trying to fit in. Baby, you weren't born to fit in. You were never born to fit in. So go ahead and stick out like a sore thumb like me. Go ahead and be different. Let them talk about you. They used to make fun of me the way that I talk, and then I ended up becoming a motivational speaker. Let them go ahead and say whatever they want, because you see, this whole entire time, you were meant to be, you were born to stand out. So young people, don't be afraid of standing out and letting your light shine, because people are going to always hate you for being different. But really what it is that they see something in you that they wish they had themselves. And so keep on being strong during this quarantine season, and you all, we're going to get through this together. Know that your love, keep serving one another, keep smiling. And y'all, thank you for, one of y'all commented about they love my smile. Y'all stop, y'all gonna make a brown man blush.
They love your tie as well. They think you're such an inspiration. There's so many wonderful, kind words and things being said by our students and by our teachers about you, Mateo. So, and they're only meeting you virtually. We know you in person and live, and I think you're just tremendous. And we're so thankful to have you as a part of our Congressional Award community. So thank you for inspiring our students and for continuing to give back. I think service is a lifetime commitment. It's not going to end at the end of this program. It didn't end for you after you earned the gold medal. You kept going. So I think to end our segment today, we're going to play that video, because I think that's just a great, impactful summation of what we've discussed today. But thank you so much, participants, and we hope to see you on our next virtual chat. Please take a look at this video and look for the email that we'll be sending as a follow-up. Thank you, everybody.
Lean on me, we are not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Swallow your pride if I can. You need to borrow, no one can fill that you won't lean on.
Thank you again, everybody. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you, Mateo, and to all of our panelists. We do hope to continue these virtual conversations, and we'll be sharing with you some additional scheduling and topics. So we hope you'll come back and join us. Take care.